When Niall Horan thinks back on his time spent in One Direction, thoughts of stadium lights and shouting fans come to mind. However, underneath the glitz and glamour, there is a more sensitive story that lays beneath the surface. In a recent admission, he disclosed that he had experienced difficulties throughout those years, so exposing how fame and pressure had molded and altered him. From a small town to the stages of the world. Before the band's inception on The X Factor in 2010, Horan spent his childhood in Mullingar, which is located in County Westmeath, Ireland. This was a long cry from the maelstrom that was waiting for him. This leap from local gigs and adolescent hopes to global tours and millions of loving followers was a spectacular experience for a teenager whose dreams were to become a reality. As stated in one of his interviews, "It was just insane in the United Kingdom. When I arrived in Milan for the first time, I recall thinking to myself, this is a different level. I found it difficult to come up with the question, why won't you just let us out? Everything we want to do is go for a stroll." In that moment, there is an unfiltered honesty. It is an admittance that the life he was living was a significant departure from what he had anticipated when he was a young boy playing the guitar. A sensation of being confined behind the scenes. In a particularly illuminating interview, Horan revealed that throughout his time spent touring with One Direction, there were periods of time in which he did not leave his hotel. And he recalled, "I literally did not leave, I would say for 5 years, and I never once left a hotel," my friend said. What is the reason? Fan throngs that were overwhelming, security that was tight, continual travel, and a personal space that went gradually. His ability to roam, to relax, and to be himself without always being recognized or mobbed was the price that the world paid for his desire to be a part of themselves. On tour, in hotels, and in limos, he and his bandmates lived in what he referred to as our bubble. They were constantly on the move, always performing, and rarely experienced true beingness. Questioning about one's identity and the mental toll. The words of Horan allude to the mental and emotional pressure that is present in addition to the physical limitations. He said that popularity was difficult for him, particularly when all he wanted was to go for a stroll or have some peace and quiet. As a result of the unexpected pervasiveness of his life and the band's, the mundane became exceptional, and the mundane became impossible. All we want to do is to go for a stroll. On the other hand, it is impossible to enter the mind of a fan. The Gulf News. Those words stabbed to the bone. The gap that exists between the star and the narrative that fans project is demonstrated by this. Although Horan was still a young guy and was still in the process of learning who he was suddenly thrown into a job that required him to maintain a continual level of performance, brightness, and availability. The transition to solo, regaining one's identity. Following the break that One Direction took, Horan began his career as a solo artist, and the transition was not limited to the realm of music. It was quite personal. He was in charge of time, space, and artistic expression, but he also took with him the lessons that he had learned throughout those formative years. He was forced to confront everything he had repressed, which included the fear of being in the spotlight all the time, the desire for normalcy, and the need to breathe. He did this by writing and performing as a solo artist. His solo tracks frequently have a tonal quality that is introspective, with a trace of liberty intertwined with the echoes of what was once experienced as a limitation. Why it is important that he concerned. The pop stardom is humanized. It's true that the glitter, the applause, and the chart toppers are occurring. On the other hand, the price of being everywhere and nowhere at the same time is the loneliness, the exhaustion, and the fatigue. The price of celebrity is brought to light. The typical aspects of your existence, such as sleep, privacy, and identity, are all thrown off when you are living on a moving platform. The confession made by Horan serves to remind us that success does not eliminate suffering, rather, it can increase it. Demonstrates increased growth and openness. The swagger that Horan displays is not a mask. Making the admission that you feel trapped is a courageous move. This opens the door for conversations about mental health in industries that are known for their high levels of pressure. Creates a sense of genuineness. It is through acknowledging the past that he is able to make his present more truthful as he continues his journey alone. Those who follow him see not only the rocker, but also the person who has persevered in spite of the fact that they felt they were being confined. Horan lived in hotel rooms, tour buses, and limos for a number of years. He was a part of a world that was constructed for the general public, but not always for him. His inner voice questioned, "What about me? In spite of the accomplishments of One Direction or any other group? What about simply going for a stroll outside?" The decision to live on his own gave him the opportunity to retake some control, but it also compelled him to confront the trauma he had experienced in the past. Being successful is not only about reaching the top, it is also about dealing with what happens once you have reached that peak. His tale demonstrates this. As a result of his vulnerability, other artists and fans alike are able to recognize that the person hiding behind the spotlight is still a human being. Because of the challenges he faced, Niall Horan's path from the hectic days of One Direction to his current solo creativity is more fulfilling than it would have been otherwise. As a result of his success, he gained knowledge. It wasn't only that he shone, he also faced the darkness. Even in the midst of everything, he never lost touch with the person he was before he became famous. So when he thinks back on those years and says that he had a hard time, it is not a complaint, rather, it is the truth. A reality that strengthens the weight of his songs, gives his presence more depth, and lends his voice more authenticity.